Now if you could just figure out how you got this silly habit in the first place. Because habits can be interesting and change all the time. And some of them can be very useful in our modern lives. Perhaps they are even necessary for our survival. And that reminds me of a story about a young hunter called Jane who goes out foraging for food. And one day, as she walks into a clearing, a large hungry tiger jumps out from behind a big boulder. And Jane manages to escape after poking the tiger with a spear she is carrying. And Jane decides to check carefully for tigers from now on, each time she goes past that particular boulder. About a year later, Jane manages to catch the tiger by surprise, and she kills it with her spear. She's certain there are no more tigers around, but she just can't stop checking behind that boulder. So now she only hunts in other places and forgets all about tigers. And Jane figures out a way to catch monkeys. She puts some sweets in a jar with a small opening, and the jar is chained to a tree. And when the greedy monkeys grab too many sweets, their hands get stuck. But they're too greedy to let go, even though they're trapped. But some of the smarter monkeys figure out a way to escape with all the sweets by swinging their hands against the tree trunk and smashing the glass. But the remaining sweets are thrown into the dirt and are spoilt or lost. And Jane notices that none of the monkeys are smart enough to take the sweets out one at a time, so they can take just what they need and come back for more later. And Jane can learn many important lessons by paying attention to life and everything she sees and hears. Now that reminds me of a story about a wise old North American Indian whose granddaughter is sad and has lost her appetite because she feels her parents are always out working or hunting. He tells his granddaughter, "I have 2 wolves fighting in my stomach. One is called accepting joy. One is called rejecting pain." His granddaughter asks, "Which will win?" The grandfather replies, "The one I feed the most." And perhaps the problem's not yours to keep. Perhaps you've stolen it, like sweets from a jar, from a younger version of yourself, and you have to give it back. And now it's no longer your problem. Now, people who are very good at decision making tend to be very conscious of the fact that adding stress to a situation can make good decision making more difficult. And they quickly become adept at taking the stress away from the difficult situation, or the situation from the stressful difficulty, or the difficulty from the stressful situation. Or sometimes it may be useful to bring calmness or simplicity to the situation, or take away the decision. And a man can drink too much alcohol on a long plane flight and lose his manners. Or the same man can give up smoking without being grumpy or rude to his fellow passengers when he realizes that life is one long journey. And I wonder if it would be useful for that man to apologize to himself or to his own body for all the negative thoughts and the pain and suffering he's given himself. And he can say, my job was to care for you, protect you, to respect and nurture you and cherish you for as long as we both shall live. And somehow I was distracted and someone attacked you, tried to hurt you, and I let them. And in a moment of confusion I joined them. And then false pride and senseless pleasure became my mantra for too long. And now I want to change. I really want to change. And I can forgive you for what you've done to yourself. And perhaps you may wonder if you need someone's permission so that you can forgive yourself, or if you can also do that all by yourself. Give yourself the gift of permission to feel better, more comfortable, relaxed, or anything you like. And you can accept this gift and share it with everyone you can. And that reminds me of a story about a lame man who can't accept healing unless he truly wants it and believes it's possible that he can recover. And he can only remain healthy and avoid relapsing if he truly promises to permanently change for the better. And for that man, the other options are beyond consideration. And some people may feel that they've been robbed of their lives, stripped of resources, beaten and humiliated, hurt and ignored, left in the gutter and incapable of self-help. And perhaps you're wondering, and you may say, why were you wandering alone, exposed to danger? And who really did this to you? And can you forgive them? And who's going to help you? And whose house are you in? And where are you? And it's nice to know at least one person cares and shows compassion, and that you can and probably will get better and make a full recovery and learn to keep safe next time and care for yourself. And perhaps you'd like to be an elephant or some other animal, somewhere safe, selected as a perfect specimen with every part in perfect working order, with the responsibility preserving your sacred body and mind as a perfect working example of your species, to inspire yourself and future generations. And all other species can be inspired and never look back. And people are very much influenced by what they see and hear. And it can be worth remembering that the most important person in the world is paying attention to everything you do and say, even when you're alone. And a very important part of you is paying attention to everything you watch and hear, and learning important lessons. Once upon a time, there was an ugly duckling who's actually very cute, with a young and impressionable mind. One day, a jealous big sister tells her she's fat and ugly. The ugly duckling looks at her reflection in the water, and she can see it's true. And the more she looks, the fatter and uglier she looks. So the little ugly duckling becomes very sad and loses her appetite. She runs away from home and soon becomes very thin and weak. Then a farmer finds her and takes her home. He and his children care for her, and soon she grows big and healthy. Then one day the duckling sees some swans flying overhead, and they glide onto her pond. "We're swans like you," they say warmly. "Where have you been hiding?" And some children nearby say, "Look at that young swan. She's the finest of them all, and she's filled with happiness." And if you want to behave differently and break a habit, something's already changed, starting with the fact that you want to change. And you can change your behavior in a certain situation, or you can change the situation you're behaving in to where you have no choice but to behave how you want to behave. It's your choice what position to put yourself in. You can take a long plane flight, or chain yourself to a tree when you eat your sweets, or simply realize you have no choice but to feed the only wolf that you choose to accept, so that you can grow up to be the person that you want to be, and that in your mind now you already are. And you can congratulate yourself on the incredible willpower you used to develop the habit you used to have. The same incredible willpower you used to develop and implement a plan to break the habit you used to have. And you can visualize that. And if you can visualize that, it's no longer a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it's only a matter of time. But something's already changed. The process has just started, and you can look forward to finding out when it finishes. It may be sooner than you think. You just need to allow that very important part of you some time to digest the new thoughts you're feeding it, and eliminate old unhealthy thoughts and create a new way of thinking. And this new food for thought can help you grow and give you the strength to change into the person you want to be.